Good evening and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Kimon Hatza and I'm a business attorney and partner at MillCrest Law in Radnor, Pennsylvania. I focus my practice in the areas of life sciences, healthcare, and information technology. Tonight we're continuing our special series on life sciences leaders in the Delaware Valley. Before I get started, I want to remind our viewers that from time to time financial issues relating to life sciences, healthcare, or technology companies will be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the show is pre-recorded and shown at a later time, the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm happy to introduce my co-host this evening, Charlie Huntington. Charlie's the head of public relations for Life Sciences PA. Life Sciences PA is the voice of advancement for the life sciences industry in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Charlie, thanks for co-hosting.
It's a pleasure, Kim, and thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, always a full calendar at Life Sciences PA, and I was wondering whether you might just take a moment and tell our viewers a little bit about either some events that recently happened or some that are on the schedule for the near term.
Absolutely, and I will keep it brief. So what I'd like to highlight is my favorite event of the year, which last year was sold out. That's the spring dinner. And that dinner will happen on March 14th at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. We always expect about 1,000 to attend. Last year, 1,200 attended from something like 40 states and 5 countries. It's actually the third largest life science gathering that happens throughout the year. This is nationwide. So it really has wound up being the place to be, and we hope people will check us out. That's lifesciencespa.org, and you can get more information there if you'd like to attend.
Well, that's a crazy event in terms of the sheer volume of people there. But if you're in the industry or you work around the industry, that's certainly the event of the year to be at, because anybody who touches the industry in any way is always there. So
that's right.
So it's a great event.
That's right. You can meet your legislators, you can see the people who funded you, you can see the people who you would like to fund you, and everybody in between.
Everybody in between. Well, that's great. Well, we have a great guest this evening, and before we bring him out, I would like to remind our viewers that if you have a question that you would like us to answer on a future show, watch this video to see how you can submit that question.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce our special guest this evening, Daniel Carbery. Mr. Carbery is the CEO and president of Amring Pharmaceuticals, an early-stage generic pharmaceutical company. In that role, he's charged with driving a talented leadership team to build a new generic drug company based on high-quality products. Prior to joining Amring, he was chief executive officer and board director for Accentria Pharmaceuticals. Additionally, he held positions of increasing managerial and executive responsibility for companies including Endo Pharmaceuticals, Procter & Gamble, Nabisco, and GlaxoSmithKline. Mr. Carbery graduated from Princeton University with a degree in chemical engineering and earned his MBA from Rutgers University. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kimon. Thank you.
What first attracted you to a career in the life sciences?
Well, I started my career, of course, in Procter & Gamble, consumer products, and I'm an engineer by training, so of course I think about problem solving sort of just constantly. And, it was, what I found was that I really like making products that people use and working with trying to find solutions to problems. I used to work on soap lines and then go to the grocery stores and stand in the soap aisle in the store most of the time. In fact, I got banned from it for a while because I couldn't figure out why the lines were not perfect. I'd spent so much time trying to make it perfect. So I got pretty obsessed about that, and I've learned over years and many companies that making products for consumers and patients and people was fun, and it was also things for your own family, for your own community, and so it's a very personal attachment to it. And so the life sciences is kind of was a natural place to go over time, because medicine, of course, right, is such a compelling product to be involved in. So.
But when we first met, you had mentioned to me that one of the things that you learned or began to realize you were learning were problem-solving skills. When you're at your first job, I guess at Procter & Gamble, acting, and you had said that you realized that those skills had a broader application. So when you went to subsequent employers in different industries, those same skills still applied, and you were teaching executive teams those same sort of problem-solving skills. Can you talk a little bit about that for our viewers?
Sure. So I'm a chemical engineer by training, coming out of a very research-oriented university. I also happen to be in the National Guard as an Army officer, and now I'm in Procter & Gamble in a business problem, right? Totally different sets of rules, tools, objectives. And I was very frustrated at first because I couldn't figure out, well, boy, this is nothing like chemical engineering. But what I've come to learn was that the tools and methodologies of solving competitive business challenges, organizational challenges, is far more interesting and more complex than the machines and the equations. And so over years through Procter & Gamble and Nabisco and KPMG and many other places, I came to realize that I had learned the general problem, the art of how to define a problem and solve it. And so that sort of snuck up on me. And what I've learned was that for really high impact management teams in emerging businesses, managing through very complex change like restructuring, growth companies, high competitive environments required learning a set of skills that most people don't get the experience to get taught formally. And so it's been actually one of the most fun things I probably have done from a management development standpoint.
How would you say that your experiences with your prior employers helped prepare you to be CEO of Amring?
It's a good question. Thank you. Because it's a startup company. Somebody said, boy, you must be really bold to go do a startup company. I said, no, I'm not bold at all. This just seems like a natural progression of things I have done in the past. And what I've done, Procter & Gamble was in a very competitive environment when I joined there. You learned, really challenging restructuring. I was at a company that's now part of SmithKline called Block Drug at the time, where I was brought in to help restructure the global operations. The problems were so complex. You learn to do that. And Endo Pharmaceuticals was a very fast growth company out of a different business model for a pharmaceutical business at the time. And so there was really no path. People didn't know actually what success would look like. And so that taught me how to help work with ambiguity and just unknowns, and how to build a sustainable company. And I've even Accenture was a turnaround CEO assignment for a company that was struggling, could barely pay the bills the next week. So by comparison, going into start a company seemed like a naturally comfortable progression in that path. So,
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your role as CEO of Amring?
Because we're a virtual company and we're in a generic space, so it's incredibly competitive immediately. You've got to be commercially viable almost immediately, and yet it's incredibly challenging because it's a global business. Hiring people. It sounds cliche, but hiring the right talent mix, who with the right level of seniority, experience, maturity, but also people who can roll their sleeves up and do really basic tasks, everything from getting the coffee maker into setting up the chairs, but also then helping me with strategy and what products we're going after. So that talent mix has been and always probably will be the most singular success or failure milestone for me. The other part was because we are a commercial business. Being in an ecosystem where you can tap the right life sciences partners, banks, accountants, IT people. You've got to be, a pharmaceutical business has typically 22 core functions that I had to fill with one person and two people, and out the whole 15 people. I need partners to do all that stuff. In fact, one of them was introduced to me at Life Sciences PA at an annual dinner.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, and so you've got to be in that ecosystem that those people are around who are interested in a company like mine and who say, yeah, boy, you're not the normal model, but I'd love to take a risk. We'd love to back your story, and that's. Those two things you can't make this successful without it. The rest is just sort of science and medicine and other parts, but without that, you can't get a company up and running.
You have to have the relationship piece.
Yeah, it is. And they've got to be the right kinds of people at the right time.
So what is and how does a generic pharmaceutical company differ from a traditional pharmaceutical company?
Good question, and not something everyone quite understands. Of course, both are pharmaceutical companies. They develop and manufacture and distribute medicine to hospitals and retail pharmacies and et cetera. The difference is where the risk and reward and focus of those companies are. Obviously, a brand company has to go discover a drug, has to go figure out what the molecule does, have to prove that it's both safe and effective, and there's an enormous series of clinical programs and marketing and other things that have to be done so that doctors understand who they prescribe it to. Well, that's the main focus of a brand pharma. Many years, hundreds of millions of dollars, different kind of risk model. A generic company is different. The drug already exists. I don't need to teach any doctor how to use it. They've been using it for years. I have to make but I don't know how the drug is made. But I have to make one that to the FDA they rate it as equivalent or biologically equivalent or as a copy. But I have to figure out how to make it myself. I have to prove through some specialized clinical programs how to do that. But also, I'm competing against everyone in the world. There are pharmaceutical companies all over the world who can have access to the U.S. market. And so if I pick products that are more commodities and the low barriers to entry, then by the time I do all that work for a couple of years and do all the science and all the marketing, I may have 20 competitors immediately. So the profit, the risk, the cycle time, and the portfolio needs are really different for the two kinds of businesses to be successful.
I know that there's always a push-pull with legislators about how long they will have a patent.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The figure in my mind that sticks out is about 14 years. Is that old? Am I remembering that correctly? It changes,
It
doesn't
changes
it?
a lot, and it depends on, the FDA gives a certain type of exclusivity for a period. The FDA wants innovation,
Right.
And the industry needs innovation, and that's a very good thing. How to promote that, and innovation versus making very minor changes is what gives you different degrees of exclusivity. We run businesses, and that's part of the challenge. It's always easier to make small, sure bets than it is to make big gambles.
Right.
Biotechnology is the poster child for how big, complex gambles, unbelievably expensive. So, the patent life could look very different. So somebody may come to market and have 14 years left of a 20-year patent because it took them 7 years to get to the market, or they may have just a 3-year exclusivity from the FDA. So the models are really different, the risks are really different. And what we do as a generic company is whether we often pursue as much old drugs as new drugs, because sometimes we try to find areas that are underserved. And sometimes some drugs are what we call the expression so old they're new because there's specialized populations that need it and there just aren't enough people making it. So it's worthwhile going there.
So as a generic pharmaceutical company, are you subject to the same clinical trials that traditional pharma companies are subject to, or not?
No,
so?
they're trying to prove different things. So there's the kind of clinical trials we do are really to prove out that the drug gets into the body the same way it does for the brand. Because remember, the FDA has already looked at the branded drug and said it's safe and effective, and here's the huge clinical programs that have proven this over years. Mm-hmm. Very large populations, very expensive, very complex. What we have to prove is that it is identical. In fact, what people don't understand about a generic drug is you can't make it better. It has to literally be the same.
So if I want it to be time released, can't do it. Or
Nope.
if I want to,
that would be a branded drug and under a different type of regulatory filing. It must be exactly the same. They have the same label, have the same everything about it, because you want the doctor to be, and the pharmacist to be able to say, here's what's prescribed. Here I have 4 versions of them. I pick the one that I use the most as my supplier, and you want that level of comfort that the patient is getting exactly the same thing.
so that time release or whatever, that potentially would reset the clock then?
That would be so. I've done those in a different world, but that would actually be a whole new brand application.
Okay.
To do a time release. If something's an immediate release and I want to make it once a day for convenience or some other reason, then that's a whole new application to the FDA for what's called an NDA for a new brand. And that may get some number of years exclusivity by the FDA for that, again, innovation.
As judged by how different that...
It's sort of by what category it's in, but yes,
Okay.
there are different levels of thresholds for that.
Thank
as
you.
opposed to coming out with an entirely new molecule, new to science.
Thank you.
And just for our viewers who might not be familiar, the initials NDA
Thank
stand
you.
for?
New drug application. Sorry, you get very into acronyms in this business. It's the application that goes to the FDA for a new drug. And a generic has a different acronym, but it's an abbreviated application to the exact same NDA. So same file. Again, you're trying to make to the FDA an identical product.
Okay. Tell us about Amring, and if you want to start with the company's mission, I guess.
Sure. So the fun part of starting a generic company, especially in the neighborhood of all the pharmaceutical businesses in the Philadelphia region, was to figure out what's our purpose. Why do we exist? Not that yes, we have to make a business model out of it, but why do we exist really? And our mission was pretty simple. It was we're trying to make very high quality niche medicines that are affordable. I say niche medicines, things that, because of the segment we're in, they're either injectables, ophthalmics in some of our areas, that the medical community, the pharmacy community is underserved. And we're not one of 20 people making, say, gastrointestinal products or an NSAID, a pain reliever. We tend to work on very hard, smaller market products that are just underserved for any number of reasons, technically or just commercially.
So if you can, what are the product categories that you're focusing on at the moment?
Sure. We do some things in women's health. We have products that are for leukemia, immunosuppressants, injectable hospital products, as well as retail pharmacy products, ophthalmic products, very specialized. In fact, we're going to launch a cataract surgery medical device this year. So
it's not all pharmaceuticals.
It's not purely all pharmaceuticals. We branched into this one space where it's a very well, but there's no thing called a generic in the medical device world, but it's the same business model. It's bringing something. It happens to be a medical device, so it's a different regulatory structure, but it's an injected liquid that's used in this, but happens to be regulated as a medical device. But again, we think we can bring extra value to the surgeons and the patients in that space by bringing another product into what is actually a very, very small number of people who work there. And it's a very, very good product. So, again, it fills out our ophthalmic segment, because we have drops and things like that for ophthalmics. We're looking at a number of products that make sense to the patient and the surgeon in that space. So we try to fill out a basket of products that help them be more successful.
Okay. Can you describe for our viewers the process that you go through in identifying the drugs or medical devices or whatever that it is that you're going to pursue?
Sure. Good question. Remember, there are thousands and thousands of drugs, and there are people all over the world who know every drug that's sold in the United States. So you're competing on a global basis for this. Everyone in every country, every scientist can do this theoretically. So what's going to make us good at this? One, we focus on markets and segments that are historically underserved, and we have a very rigorous series of financial models and business development models that we look at. We try to make sure that they will make sense not only now, but make sense in 5 years and 10 years. Right? We're not a sort of in and out. The pharmaceutical business really requires people who are stable in there for the long term. Our distributors, our wholesalers, our pharmacies, our patients, they want that name to be around, right? So we run these through our financial models, and we do very, very strict portfolio management. In fact, at one time I described it to the board of directors of one company as a generics portfolio is like a fund of mutual funds. If you think about it that way, high value, medium value, low risk, low value, and think about a portfolio, it will tend to guide you well, actually, as how you think about the medicine and the products. Because at any given day, I can't tell you if there's going to be 10 competitors or one in any given drug at any given time. The market will determine it. I do not determine any of that. I have to have the right basket of products that are relevant to our customers, that are relevant to our patients, and have the endurance and the right basket of portfolio to ride the market ups and downs over years. But we don't dictate it. It's a very, very buyer-dictated market from that standpoint. And so it's a fund of mutual funds is the model I've given people.
How many products do you have currently?
We sell 6 items today. We will be launching 3 more this year. So we're trying to build our portfolio up in that scheme. We're very excited about them. Some of them are important drugs, and they will make a difference in people's lives. So we're pretty excited about it.
Okay.
one of the biggest concerns that any company like yours would have would be funding. Can you tell us what you're presently doing and then near term what that looks like for you?
Sure, and again, this is one where I'll give a plug for life sciences. This is the dinner. This is a random dinner seating next to J.P. Morgan Chase, coordinated by Life Sciences, and they don't mind me plugging them, I'm sure.
Who, by the way, introduced us.
Right. Oh, really? So,
yeah.
team there has done a fantastic job, and they're really focusing on smaller and middle market pharmaceutical or healthcare spaces too. So, we're a natural play. So we're a privately held company, a collection of companies all over the world held by one shareholder. So we're very unusual from a funding standpoint because we're not the normal mezzanine round, starter round, angel investor, or public company. So we have a different kind of model. But it was very important in starting this company in the U.S. that we secure U.S. backers, U.S. debt to grow the company. We don't want to grow out of cash. We want to grow out of debt, cash plus a normal operating leverage. And private companies often don't do that. So we worked very, very hard to talk to a number of banks. Actually changed the bank that was part of the startup plan as I started the company up, and moved to a J.P. Morgan Chase actually. And they're plugged in with us on how we plan to grow, because generic companies can grow very quickly. You're commercial right away. You've got to go through stages very quickly. You've got to have the kind of funding tools in place as you may do acquisitions or licenses or other things very quickly. So you've got to have a person who's got that kind of global reach, because there's a global business. We may do a deal anywhere in the world on any given day, and you have to have that kind of global reach of somebody who can help be your partner when you show up in Italy or in Southeast Asia or Canada. You have to have an office there already. So it's interestingly different kind of challenge than other startup companies are. And we've so far been funding all of our transactions and all of our licenses and all of our product development out of both cash as well as some loans from J.P. Morgan. And we use our shareholder for one-off things. For transition periods, we use our shareholder has access to capital elsewhere in debt in the world. But again, we really like to keep the debt in the U.S. We really like U.S. partners, and that's our mission, and that's the mandate for the company to grow. And our goal is just to keep doing that and growing it in size and scale over time. We have a few select other kinds of partners we may be funding with, but we try to work with people who kind of understand us and can scale with us already.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's a great, and that's again, go back to the ecosystem of the area. Do you have the right kind of financial partners, IT partners, accounting partners? You've got to go live quickly. You don't have time to figure it out from scratch.
Right. So. Mm-hmm. And you may not need someone in-house if someone externally makes for a good partner.
Right, so. Absolutely. In fact, we find that people like to talk to us, both brokers, investors, banks, et cetera, companies, because of we tell them who our partners are. They go, okay, you've got serious partners. Here's your law firm. Here's your banker. Here's your auditor. You're playing in the right league. We're comfortable talking with you and doing this deal with you, and that is important. And I think people
because you've gotten validation.
Validation, right? Because we've put ourselves to the scrutiny of all those people, and we find that's become really, really important for us. Our privately held early stage generic company. Sometimes I'm always like, wow, you guys are even meeting with me, but they knew who my partners are. And they say, okay, you're real. You're a person you're worth doing business with, and we can grow these companies together. And that's what you want. That's a CEO's dream, honestly. Right? You'd love for that stuff to happen.
What does success look like, looking down the road?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're a medicine company. We always talk success initially as financials, right? We say, that was the first question the shareholder asked me was, what can I make of this? And I said, $100 million by 2021. Most importantly, what success looks like for us is we can stand there and by say 2020 or 2021 and say, here's what we sell. Here's a basket of products. Wow, these things they're affordable, they're high quality, and they make a difference in people's lives. And that's just very gratifying. Go back to my Procter & Gamble, soap aisle problem, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want. You want, at the end of the day, we serve our families, our friends, and our communities. It's very personal. It's very local, and so we, everyone who takes one of our products, we want to know who they are. And we want to be able to say, we will assure you that this product is good for you. We will assure you that this product is delivered at the right time. It's affordable, and you can do it. And that's kind of our mission.
What do you see as your greatest challenges to get there?
Well, we're in a healthcare business, which right now is between Washington
Yep.
on one end, but almost more importantly, the global changes in business to CVS and Aetna merging.
Right.
The structure of this whole value chain is changing wildly quickly, and I think the federal governments and state governments are trying to figure out how to manage access, cost, and a lot of other questions. So we're kind of in a whirlwind. But at the end of the day, we have a business plan, we have a general strategy. Our goal is just to stay on track. You can get knocked off very easily, and you can sometimes sometimes forget where the horizon is and what you've got to get to. And sometimes you spend too much time on the immediate and not enough on the important. And so having the right team of people who you can delegate to, who can work with ambiguity but with focus, and can 15 people can look like 100 out there in the world making things happen. That's I learned at Endo Pharmaceuticals, its growth early on. That was clearly becoming one of the keys as to how to do that and how to survive all the ripples and all the potholes in business life. It's just stay very focused on what we really are trying to get done.
Thank you.
The Philadelphia region has always been big in the pharmaceutical space, but there are a lot of other regions that are developing around the country and that are hot in this space.
Right.
We've got about a minute and a half.
Sure.
How did you decide on the Philadelphia region for your company?
A couple of years ago, I did through actually a consulting firm, did a human resources study, and they said if you want to be anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic, for example, in the space, they'd have databases of all the home addresses of all the people who work in healthcare, and if you drop a pin on the King of Prussia Mall, you're within 60 miles of 85% of them. And
Of the workers.
Of the workers, of the people. We're going about people, right? It's, people go to Boston. Cambridge and Boston have gotten oversaturated. I have two children who live there, and they're trying to find housing, and commuting to work is becoming a nightmare for them. It's sustainable people, sustainable workforce, full complement of commercial services. Again, we have to go commercial right away. But also affordable space, the ability to find office building, finding an office building. I looked at 14 spaces in 5 hours in month 2 of starting this up. It's there. We're working with people who just get you into places. So a lot of these other places have grown in a certain model very, very quickly. I don't know how sustainable they are. People are turning down moving up there, or to the West Coast. It's hard to do.
I think that's about all the time we have, and I think we could talk for another 30 minutes if we had the time. At any rate, I want to thank our special guest, Daniel Carbery, for being on the show this evening. I also want to thank Charlie Huntington for being my co-host this evening. The next guest on Money Matters will be Jeff Cooper, who's the president and CEO of Expo Logic, a global event and trade show service company. Money Matters is now available as an audible podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, listed as Money Matters, the podcast for mobile devices. The video is also available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. Thank you all for watching this evening, and we'll see you again next time.